I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view these Learning on the Go screencast for parents. This is an important presentation, and it's going to provide you with some valuable information about the Learning on the Go, or the LOGO, program at Dana Middle. And by the time you finish this presentation, you'll have a better understanding of what LOGO is, have a general concept of the type of netbooks that will be distributed to students, and have some basic information about the loan and usage agreement. There are two parts to this presentation. The first part is the part that you're viewing right now, but the second, and equally as important, is that we need you to download and review the netbook loan and user agreement that can be found online. It's actually found on the same website where this screencast is coming from. And I wanted to give you some background information on why Dana Middle School is looking at the Learning on the Go project and why we are excited to be participants. The use of digital tools in the classroom is something that the Point Loma community has been an advocate for years. I came here 5 years ago, and at that time the Point Loma secondary schools had already implemented the use of Parent Connection, which was unique in the district at that time. And as well, the Parent Association was allocating a lot of its funds for purchasing netbooks for placement in core curriculum classrooms. Even as early as 5 years ago, the community and the parents in the Dana area were strong supporters for the use of digital tools in math, social studies, language arts, and science. And this slide right here is actually talking about the I-21 program, which is a district-wide program. It's not unique to Dana, but what is exciting about it is that it follows up on that and expands upon the idea of the use of digital tools. It involved placing a one-to-one computer environment in every 6th grade classroom. That's what happened at Dana a couple years ago, and it's moved on to 7th and 8th grade. And this year, actually, our 5th grade classrooms will also have that one-to-one environment too. So it's pretty exciting. And along with that implementation of digital tools comes the progression of content that students are exposed to, and that's been an exciting component of it too. But I have to let you know that there has always been a limitation to this. Now, for the last 2 years, our teachers have been working hard to create engaging and interactive content online, but they knew that when they were creating content that it had to be limited to content that could be covered at school. And that's because not all of our students have access to internet at home. Many are fortunate enough to have internet access at home. Some of them are lucky enough to actually have their own computer at home. But we also had some families that had no access to the internet. So teachers could not make the assumption that all students would be able to complete digital content from both school and home. So the Learning on the Go project is an experiment to bridge that gap, which they call the digital divide. And this slide right here actually has it's a photograph of some students from Innovations Middle School in the Claremont area of San Diego. Innovations Middle has been participating in this type of program for 2 years now, and as you can see, these students are walking down the hallway with netbooks in their hands. And that's because at Innovation Middle, for the last 2 years, the netbook has not been something that the student used solely in the classroom. The netbook, the digital tool, was what they used wherever they did their online learning and wherever they did their classwork. That the netbook they carried from class to class, and yes, they actually take those netbooks home. They were checked out to them just like a textbook was. And that really is the essence of Learning on the Go, and that's what will be happening to all 6th grade students at Dana. You see, the FCC is doing a study across the nation, 20 different districts, to see what happens when students are provided with free, filtered access to the internet. It's kind of an exciting concept. You know, the federal government already has legislation in place that says that all students must have access to a math book, for example. It doesn't matter what grade level a child's in, doesn't matter what type of math class a child's in. They must be provided a textbook. The federal government considers that textbook as just part of being at school. And so the FCC is studying the concept of whether or not access to the internet, filtered access, should be as readily accessible as a math book. And so there are 200 schools in San Diego Unified, and we are one of 11 that were chosen to participate in this program. And we're pretty excited about that opportunity. One of the key components to this project is that the students will be issued a netbook, and we wanted to give you some background information on what exactly that means. Students actually already have access to these types of netbooks. They stay in the classroom right now. What's different, though, is that we'll be checking netbooks out to your child just like how we check out a textbook. It'll actually be checked out right through the library using the same inventory system. The students will also receive a charger, and they'll receive a bag to carry it in. They'll have the filtered internet, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And they'll have access to all of their textbooks on this device, as well as other instructional software. I don't know if you've ever seen the airport after Thanksgiving holidays, but it can be pretty tough to find your luggage in the luggage area. And we're imagining the same thing would happen at Dana. So one of the things that we're doing too is we're zip tying a plastic identification card onto every single netbook bag to help kids out and identifying which device is theirs. The internet access is probably one of the key components of this project. What the FCC is doing is they're putting a 3G card into each netbook. It's kind of like what you have in your cell phone, and the idea is that anytime a student has cell reception, that they'll be able to turn on their netbook and have access to their documents. The access is filtered, so if a student tried to go to an inappropriate website, like let's say Facebook or YouTube, places where there could be inappropriate content, they will be limited from going there. That already exists at school, and so these devices have been configured so that that filtering occurs at school, at home, at grandma's house, and wherever they are, the content will be controlled and monitored. The student work is actually saved on a network. It's not really saved on the computer itself, and there's a couple good reasons for that. The first is that it's for a safety concern. If a student's netbook was to break or be damaged, that the student would not need to worry about all of their files being lost. Everything is stored centrally. But what's also exciting about this, from my standpoint, is that because the documents are stored centrally, that means that you as a parent can log on at any time and look and see what your student is doing. And it's pretty exciting. You can actually look right onto your student's desktop. That's right, there's a website called my.sandy.net, and you have the ability to log into there. You can actually do it today if you want to, and type in your child's username and password and see what your child sees. And so it's a great way to stay in touch with them. And so this slide is just reminding our students that when they come and go from school, they need to make sure to shut down their computers, because that is how the computers synchronize with the network and make sure all the files are stored. We currently tell our kids when they're coming to school that they need to make sure to don't forget your backpack or don't forget your 3-ring binder, but we're also going to need to remind them now that they need to not to forget to charge their netbooks. They will be using them throughout the day. The netbooks that the students are going to be issued have a slightly larger battery to help out with that. And we're also putting charging stations in the classroom. But we know that one of the cultures that we'll need to teach our kids is when you go to bed, plug it in. You know, a digital device is useful and powerful, but it's only good as long as it's running, and so we have some mechanisms in place to help out with technical issues. We have some netbooks that are set aside as loaners, so when a student netbook goes down, we can quickly swap them out, and then the kid can keep learning while we get the netbook repaired. It's kind of like what happens if you take your car to a mechanic and he lets you borrow a car for a while. We even have what we call terminal stations in the classroom. They're kind of like a TV screen with a keyboard connected to it, and students will be able to use that in the event that they leave their netbook at home. We have a network technician at our school site who is responsible for keeping our hardware up and running, and we even have a group of students who are calling our mouse squad who are being trained on solving basic computer issues. Kind of like an extension of what they're doing in their Exploring Computers class. And so I think that these examples I gave are ways in which we're trying to make sure that technical issues will be addressed as soon as possible. Now, one of the key things that's going on here is the netbook agreement. The netbook agreement is that document that was linked on the right-hand side of the web page that you found this screencast on. The netbook agreement is basically a document which we need all parents to review and make sure they feel okay with. The agreement says that we're going to issue your child a netbook just like how we issue them a textbook, and just like how we collect textbooks in the spring, the netbook will need to be returned too. I think that one of the most important parts about the agreement is making sure that family members understand that if they ever experience a problem with their netbook, they need to let us know as soon as possible. Let's say, for example, your car gets broken into and the netbook's stolen. Well, these netbooks actually have an insurance policy on them. I think there's a $100 deductible in the event that the netbook is stolen. And what we would like you guys to do is to contact us immediately so that we can get it repaired and taken care of as soon as possible. Anytime you have a problem with the netbook, you're going to want to let us know anyways, because we're going to want to get our technical support team in to get it fixed for you. The netbook use agreement also covers what's considered acceptable use. The netbooks are designed for your student to use for learning in the classroom. That's their primary purpose. And if we find that students are abusing the device physically or with how it's used, then the agreement talks about how we're going to address that. There are a lot of online resources that students will have access to at home now that they have access to this netbook. Parent Connection is one of them. We talked earlier about how the Point Loma community has been implementing Parent Connection for the last 5 years. But now we can ensure, we know for sure that 100% of our 6th grade families will be able to look at their students' grades and attendance and assignments. And so we're excited about that. And there's a host of other online library resources that the kids have access to. Destiny and World Book are examples of online content that they can now see from school and home. And Moodle is going to be the cornerstone of the instructional program at our school. Moodle really is a flexible content system that allows teachers to create interactive activities, post homework, display project information. You even can use Moodle to turn assignments in, so you don't really need to print it out anymore. You can use a Dropbox. And so our teachers are learning how to incorporate Moodle into their classrooms. It's a pretty exciting concept. Sometimes people are concerned. They think that Moodle means that my kid's going to be sitting in a room staring at a computer screen all day, but that's not really the case. Our teachers are excited about using Moodle because they see it as a way to differentiate and to be able to conduct small group instruction more effectively. A digital tool is a powerful tool. It can be used to assess students and see what they know. And once I have that information as a teacher, I can target instruction to meet their needs. And that's kind of what the design is for Moodle. There will always be a classroom teacher, but instead of being the only person in the room who shares knowledge and information, they will be more of a coach who can help students in small groups while students can also acquire information from each other or from other resources online. So Moodle is a cool tool, and Moodle uses the exact same password that your student uses to log into their netbook. It's the same password that you would use for my.sandy.net. So, one of the first things you're going to want to do is go find your student and say, hey, tell me what your username and password is. And you'll be able to log into Moodle as well and see what your student's doing in class. We were trying to think of some common questions that parents might have, and we thought that one of them would be, what would the learning in the classroom and home look like? And I think that we talked a little bit about that when we described the Moodle application. We knew that some parents would want to know how they can see what their students are doing. And remember, because everything is based on the network, if you know your student's username and password, then you can log into places like my.sandy.net, and you'll be able to see what your kids are doing. We talked about keeping netbooks safe, and one of the things that we didn't talk about in the screencast is how we're going to handle lunch and PE. Remember, we gave the analogy of the airport and how it would be hard to find 300 black bags all stacked up together. Well, we're not going to have 300 black bags stacked up at lunchtime. Instead, we're going to have students keep their netbooks in their period 4 class. And for PE, they'll lock them up in the locker room. But I'll tell you what I would do. My wife, one of the coolest tricks she taught me was that on our luggage that we take when we go to the airport, she tied a big blue and green ribbon on it. And that helps us easily pick out our bag when it comes off the carousel. And so we're going to recommend that our students do that as well. Even though they have that ID badge on there, having something to help identify the bag will be critical. We also talked about what happens if the child leaves their netbook at home. We mentioned we have those terminals in the classroom, those TVs with the computer monitors that students will be able to use in the event that they do leave their computer at home. The learning will be online, and we don't want to have it stop for any reason. Well, thank you for taking time to preview this webcast. Please take a moment to find the link on the right-hand side of the screen where you can download the network usage agreement. Take a moment to review that document with your child, make sure you feel okay with it, and turn it in to your child's homeroom teacher. We do not have the ability to distribute netbooks to students unless that document is filled out and completed. If you have any other questions about the LOGO program in general, you can always email me directly. My name is Scott Irwin, and I am the Vice Principal at Dana Middle School, and I can be reached at sirwin@sandy.net. Thanks again for taking time, and we're really excited about the program, and we'll keep you posted as we learn more about how student achievement changes in the spring.